So I noticed that some folks in the Commander community are upset at what's being called Universes Beyond 5-color Slop Commanders. Basically, most Universes Beyond sets we've seen so far have at least one 5-color commander that supports one of the major themes of their set, and two of the latest ones have been accused of being boring, generic good stuff. Cosmic Spider-Man got a lot of heat for this, just being a 5-color keyword soup commander for all your spider people. And the discourse flared up again when we got our first peek at the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set with Heroes in a Half Shell, another 5-color, 5/5 keyword soup commander that just gives a little bit of a generic buff to the most common creature types in that set. And as new commander cards are being pumped out at a dizzying rate and Universes Beyond becomes a larger and larger percentage of those new cards, we have 7 new sets coming out next year, and more than half of those sets will be Universes Beyond. The fear that I've heard a few people express online is that eventually Commander could be flooded by a bunch of boring, generic 5-color good stuff piles. But then that got me thinking, is this criticism actually justified? And also, are these designs even bad in the first place? I wanted to discuss that, so I'm going to be putting on my designer hat to explore these cards. One moment, please. Okay, it's a crown and not a hat, but I made this crown for a previous video, and I think it came out really great, actually, so I always wanted an excuse to put it on for another video, and here we go. It's my designer crown. Anyway, let's talk about these cards, and let's start with why I think they're being made. Now, I've mentioned many times in the past my various criticisms and concerns about Universes Beyond in general. However, I will always concede that it is a very effective tool to not only get new players into the game by having a particular IP that they're a fan of as a set, but also get players who used to play Magic and maybe stop playing back into the game, get hooked again if an IP that they love is made into a set and that hooks them in again. And I also know that some of these fans want to build commander decks featuring heavily the IP that they like, if not exclusively cards from that IP. And one good indicator to believe that WotC also thinks this is true is that if we look at all the previous Universes Beyond Commander precons, every single precon only features artwork and flavor text from that IP. And that's not common for other commander decks. Like if you have an Ixalan precon with dinosaurs, it might feature artwork not from Ixalan. I personally know a lot of people who consider this a very big plus of Universes Beyond precons, that if they are a fan of an IP, they pick up a precon and every single card is from that same IP. And from a content creator perspective, whenever we don't get precons for a Universes Beyond set, I'm bombarded with requests for me to build decks using cards either exclusively from that IP, that Universes Beyond IP, or at the very least feature those cards heavily. This is all anecdotal evidence, of course. I don't know, for example, what percentage of Final Fantasy fans really care about having every single card in their commander deck be Final Fantasy if they get into the game through Universes Beyond. But I think it's realistic to assume that a significant number of people do care about these things. And while I couldn't find any official WotC comments on the design intent of these 5-color Universes Beyond commanders, I think it's a reasonable assumption to have that one of the primary factors of designing these cards is to let people who are a fan of whatever IP have a commander that they can just throw all the cards from the IP that they like into the 99 and have a commander deck that they can jam on Commander Night. I did reach out to 2 different WotC game designers who work on commander cards, and neither could verify my assumption because for all I know, there is no public statement on their design intents, and WotC designers cannot just give away information that isn't publicly known already because then they can get in trouble. Totally valid, but that means I just have to work on an assumption here. But if we do assume that these 5-color commanders are designed primarily to give fans of whatever IP a home for all their IP cards, shove them into the 99, things start to make a lot of sense. Let's look at Cosmic Spider-Man again with the assumption that this card was designed to be a home for fans of Spider-Man to shove their Spider-Man cards into the 99 of. So first, obviously, he needs to let you put all your Spider-Man cards into 99, hence why he is 5 color. You can just put all your Spider-Man cards into it, not worry about color restrictions. Next, he needs to directly support the Spider-Man cards you're putting in the 99. So he supports spiders because, well, Spider-Man is called Spider-Man for a reason. It's the main selling point of the set. So all good so far. This commander is going to be supporting spiders. So let's look at the spiders from the Spider-Man set and see what common thread ties them together. And the answer is, just the creature type, apparently. Some of them have web slinging, but not all of them. Some of them care about +1/+1 counters. Some of them care about attacking, enter the battlefield abilities. Some cast stuff from exile and care about casting stuff from exile. One of them's called Spider-Ham. So how the heck do you tie all these random spider people together in a cohesive deck? The easiest answer is, well, generic value. Since the only unifying game mechanic between all these Spider-Men is the fact that they are spiders, well, I mean, that's all Cosmic Spider-Man can really care about. And since they all do wildly different things, Cosmic Spider-Man has to benefit all of them somehow, and the way they chose to do so is with just keyword soup. You know, like every single creature can benefit from flying, lifelink, haste, and whatnot. So it's an easy way to support all your Spider-Man cards. And since the set is small, you have a very small card pool to work with to make a 99 card singleton deck out of, and most of the spiders really suck. Unfortunately, Cosmic Spider-Man is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you to have a chance to do anything in Commander Night. So Cosmic Spider-Man does a lot of the powerful things all by himself. For 5 mana, you get a 5/5 really good beater. That's what he does. He punches people really hard. I call this a high power floor, by the way. A commander that provides a lot of value very consistently and reliably without needing optimization in the rest of the deck, in the 99. So again, with my assumption that this commander is meant to put all your Spider-Man cards into a deck and have it semi-functional for Commander Night, I think, from a design perspective, it accomplishes its task. It's a home for all your Spider-Man cards, it rewards you for running Spider-Man, and it punches people in the face without any other assembly required. But, and this is a big but, is the card boring? And the answer is like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at it. It's a vanilla-looking beat stick that gives the most incredibly generic anthem effect to your spiders, and it cares the absolute minimum about the set that it actually comes from. It doesn't care if you're buffing up Shelob from Lord of the Rings or you're buffing up Peter Parker. They're both spiders, and it cares about them equally. To be fair, that's probably because there's no interesting mechanics tying all the spiders together from the Spider-Man set, so this design is the easiest way to support all of them. But also, to be fair, the end result isn't very interesting. Not to keep dunking on this card, but it's also not impossible to come up with an interesting commander for a specific card pool that doesn't have a unifying theme already. Since the spiders of the set basically fall into 3 separate camps, either enter the battlefield triggers, +1/+1 counters, or attack triggers, you could theoretically just come up with a commander that supports all 3 camps in a distinctly Spider-Man-y way. Here's a rough draft of a version I made in literally 5 minutes for illustrating this point. It gives web slinging as a unique and interesting mana reduction to your more expensive spiders, plus it's setting specific, very flavorful, and is an interesting build around. Then it gives flying and haste to the spiders that care about attack triggers and combat triggers, and it also gives +1/+1 counters because some of the spiders care about that too. And obviously, all the spiders benefit from flying, haste, and +1/+1 counters, so it's just generally good, but it's more specific to the spiders of the Spider-Man set, and I think that's the important distinction here. Again, I made this in literally 5 minutes, so it's far from perfect. I'm sure you can come up with even better designs that accomplish the goals I set out in a more interesting and dynamic fashion, but this was just to show what can be done. You can also go wilder and more complicated with the design, but I kept mine super simple because the original Cosmic Spider-Man is super simple. So I wanted to keep the simplicity the same while just trying to make it a little bit more interesting and more flavorful. So yeah, I think Cosmic Spider-Man is very functional, but I don't think it's a very interesting design. So I get the complaints about the card. It's not very interesting, but at the same time, I also sympathize with the designers because I don't think they had that much to work with. But are all 5-color Universes Beyond commanders doomed to be bland? I don't think so. Let's compare him to Avatar Aang, the main set 5-color commander for Avatar The Last Airbender. Again, if my assumption is correct, he's got the same primary design goal. You take all your favorite Avatar cards from the set, you jam it in the 99, and bam, you have a semi-functional deck immediately to play on Commander Night. The main mechanics of the set are the 4 bending types: Earth, Fire, Water, and Air bending, and Aang rewards you for doing all the bending stuff by giving you oodles of card draw. And because the card pool is very limited, Avatar Aang makes up for it by having a very high power floor. For 4 mana, you get a 4/4 flyer that every single time it attacks, it firebends too, aka drawing you a card. So that is the bare minimum you can expect from this card. 4 mana, 4/4, that every single turn it attacks, you draw a card, no other work required. He also adds some extra excitement, some spice, if you will, by having this cool transform ability. It's very strong, but appropriately difficult to pull off, assuming no cheat codes like Moon Mist. Get out of here. But most importantly, allows those clever designers to sneak a little black pip on the back end over there so you can run it as your 5-color commander. Now, personally speaking, I find Aang's draw engine pretty boring. It's literally whenever you do X, you draw a card, which I believe is like the laziest value engine design possible, and he even triggers his own card draw too. Is it powerful? Absolutely. But we've seen this do X draw a card thing a billion times before on previous cards. Thankfully, though, he's got a lot more going on. Like Firebending 2, yeah, it draws a card, whatever, but I think the mechanic itself is really, really interesting, powerful. The ramp is really, really strong, but you have to build around it properly. You have to have like instant speed, flash, clues, whatever, to actually sink that mana into, which I think is like phenomenal in terms of like a new game mechanic. I absolutely love Firebending. And then obviously, the transformability is just like objectively really cool, right? Like it's super flashy, it feels really great when you manage to do it because it's kind of hard to do it. Again, get out of here, Moon Mist. But yeah, it's really flashy, it's really cool to pull off, and it rewards you for doing the bending stuff, which is the whole point of making an Avatar deck. But yeah, I like it. And quibbles aside, he's obviously like way more interesting than Cosmic Spider-Man, right? Like it's like a night and day difference here. And like even if I find do X draw card designs pretty boring in general, I do think it's used very appropriately here, because what it means is that Avatar Aang actually supports you for casting cards from the Avatar set and nowhere else. This is the set's mechanics. If you are airbending, earthbending, firebending, whatever, you're playing Avatar cards. And I think that's kind of the point of these commanders, right? Meanwhile, Mr. Generic Soup over here cares about the idea of spiders. He doesn't even care about Spider-Man. You could run a deck full of spiders outside of the Spider-Man set, and there wouldn't be a meaningful difference on how the card supports the rest of the deck, which I think isn't great. I'm sorry to keep dunking on the card, but it's so easy. And then on top of rewarding you for running Avatar exclusive cards, Avatar Aang also has Firebending, which is neat, and also transforms, which is objectively just really cool. Of my designer crown, I can deem this design as an A+. And I think for the most part, the online community agrees. When I saw Avatar Aang being previewed and I read the comments underneath them, it seemed pretty dang positive. People were excited about the transformability and stuff. I didn't see many slop accusations on this one like I saw for Cosmic Spider-Man. I should also note that from what I've seen from the online community, like on Reddit and on Blue Sky and whatnot, that people are just generally much more positive about the Avatar IP in Magic compared to Spider-Man. So I'm sure like that also has a bias in terms of people's evaluation of both of the cards too, and how they receive both of the cards in terms of feedback. I'm definitely guilty of this too, by the way. I personally prefer the Avatar IP over the Spider-Man IP, just in general. And then also I have a bias towards Universes Beyond sets that are fantasy themed and have like a magic system to them. I feel like they fit better in what I like about Magic the Gathering as a whole. And I don't really like seeing New York City in Magic. It doesn't really fit with what I like about Magic as a whole. And that's a personal bias. Everybody can have their own opinion, but it's definitely going to be coloring how I view some of these cards, and it's something to keep in mind of. Another Universes Beyond 5-color commander that I think gets it totally right is Ezio or Ezio. I have no idea how to say his name, but he's the Oops All Assassin's Creed commander. Again, assuming that the primary design goal of this card is to give a home for all your Assassin's Creed cards, well, he is 5-color. He cares about the main feature of the set, which is the assassins. Obviously, it's called Assassin's Creed. And he supports them by giving them all free running, which is like a very significant mana discount, especially for your more expensive assassins, but it does so in a setting-specific way. It's unique, it's flavorful, and it has some build-around potential. It's really cool. And he's also got that flashy assassination ability, again, to allow him to be a 5-color commander, but also to give some much-needed spice to the card. It's a cool ability. My criticism of this card is he's actually too weak. I think his power floor is too low for him to be an effective commander of an Assassin's Creed deck. However, he is a fantastic commander if you expand beyond the IP and you just run him as an Assassin's commander and don't focus on the IP entirely. He's definitely not boring though, and I looked back on comments when the card was previewed and I didn't see anybody like commenting that he's slop or anything, so I guess the online community, at least from where I'm looking, agrees with this too. So, with the powers vested in me by my designer crown, I deem this card not slop. Very good design, setting specific, very cool, cares about the main features of the set, A+ on all of that. I do think the power floor could have been higher though. Okay, so we covered Cosmic Spider-Man, Avatar Aang, Ezio/Ezio, I don't know. And now we finally go back to Heroes in a Half Shell. This is a 5-color 5/5 keyword soup commander that gives itself and all of the most popular Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle creatures card draw and +1/+1 counters when you punch people in the face. It's obviously got a very high power floor. All by itself, it's a 5-mana 5/5 keyword soup, immediately gets to swing in, draw a card, and grow itself, and defend yourself. No other cards required. Okay, this is obviously just Cosmic Spider-Man again, right? Obviously not very interesting. However, I do think there are some key differences. We're still months away from getting the full card list of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but we did get an early teaser, and we know some general things about the set. First of all, it's a small set, and second of all, it comes with a Commander Precon, something the Spider-Man set, which is also a small set, did not have. Heroes in a Half Shell comes from that Commander Precon, but it's not the face commander. This is the face commander. It's Leonardo the Balance. It's a 5-color commander that has this set's version of partner, which is character select. So you get Leonardo, which is a 5-color commander, so he could just be the commander by himself, and then you get to pair him with any of these other character select creatures that they revealed. Unlike Heroes in a Half Shell, Leonardo doesn't care about creature types. Instead, he cares about combining tokens and +1/+1 counters in the same deck. And we know that's going to be the primary focus of this precon. We've even seen a new token type coming with the set, maybe just precon specific. It's mutagen, and it's literally a token that puts +1/+1 counters on things. So we've already got a 5-color commander that is more interesting and cares more specifically about the set it's coming from because it's rewarding you for running like this mutagen stuff. So why do we have Heroes in a Half Shell? The answer to that is pretty simple. Every single commander precon ever printed since all the way back to 2011 has had a face commander that is usually the best suited to lead what the major themes of the precon are, and then a secondary commander that can also lead the stock list and also cares somewhat about what the precon is doing, but does it in a different way and cares about slightly different things, and that's what Heroes in the Half Shell is doing. So while Heroes in the Half Shell isn't the most unique design ever printed, I think it's more interesting, especially considering the fact that it's being printed in a precon that specifically cares about +1/+1 counters, which Heroes of the Half Shell actually supports. I saw a lot of negative comments about this card when it was previewed a few weeks ago, calling the design boring, which, I mean, yeah, it's not the most interesting design out there for sure, and then also calling it slop. And I think like slop is like this new word that is like a new buzzword going around on the internet. It's very, very popular these days. I might even use it as like a title and thumbnail too to get clicks. It's more of a shorthand, at least in the Magic community, for saying something that's boring or something that they don't like. And I think that's a little bit silly. So if you consider this slop because it's boring and kind of generic, then okay, fine. But you could just call it boring and generic instead, right? I also don't think that generic commanders are necessarily a bad thing by default. In fact, I think it's good to have generic options for commanders out there. It appeals to certain players, for one, but also they can be the commander for very narrow decks that don't currently have a commander that is better suited for them. Like if you have a weird, janky deck concept that doesn't have currently a commander directly supporting it, you can just pick a generic value engine to kind of make the deck function a little bit better. I think that's a good thing overall, as long as the generic options do not become wildly more powerful and more desirable than any specific option. Like Golos is the prime example of a very generic commander becoming too good, and that it becomes the better option even when you're trying to do something more narrow. It also could be for like Heroes in a Half Shell to have a commander that is more broadly generic to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that you could put all your Ninja Turtles into the deck and not have to focus specifically on +1/+1 counters and tokens like Leonardo does, because maybe the main set doesn't really focus that heavily on tokens and +1/+1 counters. Maybe Mutagen is only in the precon. Who knows? Do I find these cards a little bit boring? Yes, but also I probably am not the target demographic for them. They're probably aimed at newer players who are joining through the IP that they like, and they're already having to learn the most complicated formats in the most complicated game out there. So maybe just having a commander that is more chill and easy to understand is actually a good thing. Also, the last important thing I want to bring up is not every single Universes Beyond set has a generic 5-color commander. For example, Final Fantasy just recently came out. It had 2 5-color commanders, but neither of them really support the main themes of the main set. Terra is an Enchantress commander that specifically supports sagas, and yes, there are sagas in Final Fantasy, but probably not enough to make a full Final Fantasy sagas deck out of. And the Wandering Minstrel is a Towns commander, another relatively minor theme in the set. Also, both of these commanders are ones I would classify as having a relatively low power floor. Honestly, if you just cast them, they don't really do that much by themselves. You really need to build around them and optimize around them before they become really, really powerful. And same goes for the 5-color commander in the Lord of the Rings set, Tom Bombadil. Again, also a saga commander. Weird that it keeps happening, but not that many sagas in the Lord of the Rings set. There's a couple, but not enough to make a full deck around. Definitely not the best choice if the primary design goal was to just jam all your Lord of the Rings cards in the Tom Bombadil deck. It's not going to work that well. And I think the reason for this is that they don't have to. Final Fantasy has 4 commander precons, and also Lord of the Rings has 4 commander precons. So if you want to play commander with the cards that are only from that IP, they already built those products for you. Spider-Man, Avatar, and Assassin's Creed don't have any commander precons at all, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles only has the 1. I'm not sure why the Universes Beyond sets that do have commander precons also have a 5-color one coming with it. Maybe they don't have to. Maybe it was just a coincidence for those two, but I think that explains why some of them are generic and some of them aren't. So yes, every single Universes Beyond set seems to include at least one 5-color commander option. And yes, Universes Beyond gradual takeover of Magic as a whole means we're going to be getting a lot more 5-color commanders shoved into the format in the next couple years. But of all the things that are bothering me about Commander and Magic as a whole, this barely registers as a concern for me personally. Yeah, a few of them are a bit boring designs, and by a few I mean literally just 2 of them. The majority aren't boring at all in my opinion, and none of them are super generic value engines that are going to be the default commander for a bunch of different decks. These are definitely not Golos level commanders, y'all. So, with the power of my mighty designer crown, I decree that the hate for these cards are kind of just overblown. They're not a big deal, y'all. It's fine. That's all I got to say on it, so until next time, friends. See ya!